This episode is sponsored by Law Tiger San Diego. If you or a loved one is injured in a motorcycle accident, call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS for a free case evaluation. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Scenic Ride, a podcast where we explore some of the most epic motorcycle roads in North America and beyond. My name is Sana. Happy New Year. I hope you had a nice break over the holidays. I just got back from riding a dual sport in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where it was nice and warm, but I'm happy to be back home in California again. As you may have noticed, this podcast took a little break for a few months. Last year got a little crazy for me, which we don't have to go into here, but I'm excited to be back to doing regular episodes again. And the good thing is that I've been doing a ton of moto traveling this past year, and I have a lot of scenic roads that I want to share with you guys. Today we are headed to the East Coast to ride Skyline Drive, which is the road that runs through Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. This road has been on my bucket list for years, and I finally had the opportunity to ride it. I usually plan a little birthday ride for myself in October, and this was my birthday trip this past year, and I'm pretty happy about that. My guest today is my friend Katherine. She lives in DC, and we rode Skyline Drive together a few months ago, so we'll talk about that trip and some of her favorite rides in the area. So yeah, welcome back, and let's get into it. I've said this before, but if a national park has a scenic drive as one of its main attractions, that road is almost certainly worth riding, and Skyline Drive is no exception. This road is 105 miles long, and according to the National Park Service, it takes at least 3 hours to drive it. That's without stopping, and it's assuming that you don't hit a ton of traffic. Shenandoah National Park is only about 70 miles from Washington, D.C., and if you go during the peak fall season when the leaves are changing, you will definitely probably hit some stop-and-go traffic. We visited the park in early October, and the trees had started turning, and it was really pretty, but we somehow got super lucky and hit almost no traffic. This was probably the best birthday present I could have wished for, to be honest. Skyline Drive was built in the 1930s, and it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1997. It's also a National Scenic Byway and a National Historic Landmark. There's an exhibit inside the Bird Visitor Center at mile 51 that tells the pretty controversial story of how the park was built, and it is definitely worth a stop. There are only 4 spots along the entire drive where you can get on or off the road, other than overlooks and hiking trails and stuff within the national park. So I would recommend starting at either the northern or southern end and riding the entire 105 miles in one go. If you go from north to south and then keep going once Skyline Drive ends, you'll end up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which connects Shenandoah with Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Skyline Drive runs along the crest of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's a slow-paced, meandering type of road with really incredible views. The riding here is so good. It's not technical by any means, but you're also never on a straight road. It really is just perfect for cruising. I did this ride on a 1996 Harley-Davidson Heritage Softail, and it felt like this road and this bike were just made for each other. Heritage Softails are usually my preferred bikes to rent when I fly somewhere to ride, but those are usually brand new with a lot of performance upgrades. The 90s Harleys we were on were not fast or performance-oriented in any way, but it was still a really comfortable, back-to-basics way to travel, especially on these roads with the low speed limits. There are several restaurants and also lodges and campgrounds along Skyline Drive, so you could easily spend a lot more time here than we did since we just rode through it and made some quick stops along the way. The park also sits in an area with so much other good riding. So definitely check off Skyline Drive from your list and then go head out and explore the other roads around it. We did a full loop from DC through Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and into Pennsylvania, and it was a really perfect long weekend ride. I'll talk more about all of this with Katherine in just a few minutes. But before we get to the interview, I wanted to flag a few things. We recorded our conversation last month, and we were unfortunately having some audio issues, so I do want to apologize for the sound quality. Hopefully, you can still listen to it okay. We also talk about a lot of ice cream places that we couldn't remember the names of, but I made a list of them that I'll post over on our Instagram page at The Scenic Ride. So check those out if you are also an ice cream lover. All right, that's enough of the disclaimers. Let's get to my chat with Katherine. Okay, I am so happy to welcome to the Scenic Ride my friend Katherine. Hi, it's really good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's start by telling people, how do we know each other?
Well, we know each other from the internet, of course. The internet of motorcycles, a wonderful thing. Um, I think I actually started following you when you did your Royal Enfield trip in Alaska.
Oh yeah, that was in 2021. So that's a few years ago. And then I think I followed you back and we started talking, and then you came out to California and visited, and we went for a little ride together.
And we got ice cream.
We got ice cream. Very important. I think that's how we became friends. We bonded over our shared love of motorcycles and ice cream.
And on that trip, as I think when you were talking about like your goal of going to all the national parks, and you had not been to Virginia yet. And so I think that first time I was like, well, you should come out. And one of the things I love about you is that you actually followed up on it.
Yeah, so I definitely had to check Shenandoah National Park off my list. And you live in DC, which is just outside of the park. I mean, about 70 miles, I think. So that was perfect. Yeah, so I came out to visit you a couple months ago. Not only did you give me a tour, a guided tour of the West Wing of the White House, but you also let me stay in your guest room and you let me ride one of your 1996 Harleys. So that was very kind.
It's a full service here at La Casa de Catherine.
So nice. Tell me a little bit about your Harleys.
Yeah, so I have two 1996 Harley Davidson Softails, basically. One of them is a heritage softail, and it was my dad's motorcycle that he bought new in 1996 in Milwaukee. Like I have all the paperwork from when he bought it. And I even have like a little piece of paper or something when he bought it from the factory that showed that he got like a discount because his company was a contractor for Harley Davidson back in the day. So that was his bike, and he passed away in 2006. And shortly after he passed away, I got into motorcycling because I wanted to learn how to ride his motorcycle, that Harley. And so I learned how to ride on his bike, but my brother wanted to keep it. So I had to buy my own after that. So I ended up with another 1996 Harley Davidson, a Fat Boy. And that was my first bike, basically. After I learned to ride on my dad's Harley, I bought my own Fat Boy, and then I rode that for about 7 or 8 years before I got totally into off-road motorcycling. But through like a little weird twist, like I ended up with both motorcycles now, both Harley Davidsons live in my garage. So I don't get to ride them very often, but I was very excited that someone wanted to come out and ride them with me.
Yeah, so I got to ride your dad's bike and you rode your Fat Boy, and we did, I think, about 900 miles in 4 days. And I mean, I love a big twin Evo. I actually got home from that trip and really wanted to buy an old Harley myself, but I don't have room in the garage. Um, they're not fast. I was struggling to go above 65, but they're very comfortable.
Yeah, they're basically the perfect bike to ride on a like 50 mile per hour sweeping sort of like slightly curvy country road. That to me is the like platonic ideal for these.
Yeah, it feels like you're riding a real Harley.
Yeah, you can feel everything. You can like, just like lean into the curves in like a way that feels really fun to me and very planted. Especially as I like now ride mostly dual sport and like adventure off-road bikes, like being back on these Harleys and like going around a turn at 55 miles an hour just feels.
It's great. We did get pulled over though. Uh, let's talk about that because you stopped first. I saw him in the mirror, and I was like, "There's no way he's pulling us over. We're going exactly the speed limit." But what did he tell you?
Uh, yeah, so this we were in the far right lane of like a 3 lane freeway highway, and we were going probably like exactly 60 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, which is probably the speed limit. But we didn't get over to the middle lane when passing him as he was had somebody else pulled over on the side of the road. I literally had no idea why we were getting pulled over until I like got off the motorcycle and went over and talked to him. Um, and thankfully he only gave us a warning.
He did, which still seemed a little bit unnecessary, but I'm sure he just saw two girls on Harleys and wanted to talk to us. So,
He seemed pretty like excited to chat once we got off the bikes and he started talking.
yes. Okay, so our first day we rode from DC to Shenandoah National Park, and then we did all of Skyline Drive from north to south. And so this episode is mainly focused on Skyline Drive because it's one of those like bucket list motorcycle roads. I had never ridden it before, obviously, hadn't been to Shenandoah. You've been there before, but this was your first time doing it on a motorcycle, right?
I've ridden parts of it before on motorcycles, but I've never done it like north to south, complete it all in one day. So that was like really fun experience. And honestly, it's not something that I've done it like once many, many years ago, but it's not something you do very often if you are a motorcyclist in DC, I think, because at least on the weekends, it can be really crowded. And so if you're someone who's just like weekend riding from DC, maybe you'll go do Skyline Drive. I'm sure lots of people do, at least once or twice, but there's so many other roads nearby that are also beautiful that are much less crowded. That, doing Skyline Drive is something that's like really great to do a weekday like we did.
Yeah, we did do it on a Friday, but it was a Friday of a long weekend. And it was in October, which is when the leaves start turning, and that's when it gets really crowded there. So I was very happily surprised by how not crowded it was. I think we got super lucky when we were there.
We definitely did. I think like a couple weeks later, I think I sent you something showing the like just crazy backups of leaf peepers, people out there in their cars and probably motorcyclists as well. Just like, because it's a 2 lane road and the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. So there's just really nowhere you can go because there is maybe, I think there's 2 places where you can get off of Skyline Drive once you get on. So you pretty much just get on it to ride it and to like pull over and go to the lookouts out into the valley, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's the road is 105 miles from start to finish, which at 35 miles an hour, it takes some time to get through. But I think even when we went, even though it wasn't peak fall foliage season, it was still really beautiful. The leaves were already turning, and I feel like we got really the full experience, but without all the crowds. So that was really, really nice.
It's beautiful there, obviously, when the leaves are in peak, but I think it's beautiful there in any season. Like they're all different. It's like, even in winter when there are no leaves on the tree, it's just beautiful.
And this was my 50th national park, which I felt was worth celebrating, and you agreed and brought a bottle of sparkling cider and some champagne flutes, and we celebrated at one of the scenic overlooks, which was so nice. I'm gonna look back at that memory fondly for a long time. So thank you for doing that.
Well, it's a big achievement. Like getting to 50 parks is incredible. And it needed to be recognized. Something to celebrate.
I'm glad someone else is, interested in my journey here, because all I want to do is ride motorcycles to national parks and talk about riding motorcycles to national parks. So
there's a select group of people out there who are like really stoked at being able to check all the national parks off their list. It's like a small but cool.
Yeah, I was just telling you that I'm going to the U.S. Virgin Islands next week to check off park number 51, because there's a national park on St. John, which is one of the Virgin Islands, and I probably would never go there if it wasn't for the park that I need to check off. So it's also a really good way to just go places that you wouldn't normally travel to, and kind of see the country and see the world that way.
It's awesome. I'm like so proud of you.
Thank you. All right, enough about me and the national parks. You were telling me about this museum in the park in Shenandoah at one of the visitor centers that we ended up stopping at. And I'm really glad we did. I haven't seen something like that in a lot of other national parks, where it's kind of like, you walk through and it goes into the history of how they built the park. But you've been there before too, right?
Yeah, that museum I think is really important, and like important to share about the history of Shenandoah National Park. That frankly, when they created the park, they displaced a bunch of people. Shenandoah National Park, I believe, is like one of the first national parks that they did, and there was like a lot of interest in having a national park so close to the nation's capital. So there was like a lot of support and congressional support and like federal financial support for being able to create the park. And there's a bunch of parts of the park that I think, like a lot of national parks, were created through like the Works Progress Administration and some of the like funding during the Depression to put people to work. But the land that Shenandoah National Park is made up of, like, had people living there before the national park was created. And so that museum is really interesting because it kind of talks about some of the stories of those people. And I've done a lot of hiking in Shenandoah National Park as well. And there's a few hikes where you're like in the middle of the woods and you come across like a tiny little cemetery where you can see like foundations and remnants of homes and like little tiny, like, I don't even know if I would say villages, but like little settlements that were there 100 or 200 years ago. So it's cool to see like the history and then like drive through it and sort of imagine what it looked like before it was just allowed to be wild.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of the national park system as a whole, too, because obviously a lot of this land was indigenous to begin with, if not all of it. So a lot of populations have been displaced, and it is sometimes it feels good when they acknowledge it, like in the park, that there is a problematic past, even though we're still able to go there and enjoy the views and enjoy the park as it is today, but still acknowledging that what came before it. I think that's important. And then when you get to the end of Skyline Drive, that marks the start of the Blue Ridge Parkway, which we didn't get to ride because this was right after Hurricane Helene, I believe. So a big chunk of the road was closed. I can't remember. Have you done the Blue Ridge Parkway before?
Yeah, I've done parts of it. I've taken a trip down that way, and then we did like Tail of the Dragon, which you can end up if you go down Skyline Blue Ridge Parkway, you can kind of loop back around and do Tail of the Dragon back up to DC. I think that's like a fairly common route that people from this area end up doing. And anywhere down past Skyline Drive where it turns into the Blue Ridge Parkway, like even off the Blue Ridge Parkway, there's just tons of beautiful roads to ride if you're alone, and not just on road.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I've only done the other side of the Blue Ridge Parkway, the one that you were talking about that is in Smoky Mountains, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, that then connects to Tail of the Dragon. So I've done that part, but I need to come back and ride the full road and do an episode of this podcast on the Blue Ridge Parkway as well. And then when we were done with all of that with Skyline Drive, we headed up northwest through West Virginia. We went back east again. We went to Gettysburg so I could check off Pennsylvania from my list because I hadn't been to that state before.
We went to Harper's Ferry, don't forget.
Harper's Ferry, that was really cool because that's where Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland all meet in one place. So we basically walked across a bridge and we were in a different state. That was cool. And a really beautiful area too.
And you got recognized on the bridge, which was really exciting to see in person.
Yeah, it's really weird when people recognize me from Instagram in real life. I never get used to it. I don't know what to say, but it's fun. I'm glad people are out there, traveling and doing stuff. And
she was very gracious. You were very gracious. It was just like 3 motorcycle ladies like being fans of each other on a bridge. It was awesome.
On a bridge between Maryland and West Virginia. That was fun. That was great. And then we also took a day trip out to Delaware and jumped in the Atlantic Ocean, even though it was October and pretty cold. And we even got ice cream on the way back and froze our asses off. But I feel like there was so much we got to check off on this little 4-day trip. Was there a specific part that was like your favorite or something that you really enjoyed?
Well, I am really glad that we got to go to Harper's Ferry just so I could show you that part. And I feel like the time of day that we were there was just sort of spectacular. It was in the morning and the lighting was really cool. And it's just a really cute little town. So if you're listening to this from the area and you've never ridden a motorcycle over the Harper's Ferry, you should definitely put that on your list. It's always a cool ride to get there and then parking a motorcycle downtown and walking around the village. I think you noted that we got ice cream when we went to Delaware, even though it's definitely too cold to get ice cream that day. We should note for everyone that we got ice cream every single day that you were here. So,
yes, we did. Which was your favorite ice cream stop?
I think the place the place that we stopped in Delaware had ice cream, even though it was too cold that day to get it. I also like that place that we went to in DC, before we left Washington. The place near the Union Market. They have really good ice
cream. It was good. I'm still getting emails from them, and I keep thinking about how good that ice cream was.
Did you have a favorite?
I think probably when we stopped in Frederick, and got some special Frederick specific ice cream flavor that was a mud something chocolatey flavor. I'm a sucker for chocolate ice cream, so I think that was probably my favorite, but they were all good. It's ice cream.
That's after we did the covered bridges, right?
Oh yeah, we basically spent half a day just riding to different covered bridges that we found on Google, I think, and it was great. We kept running into the same people that were also doing just a tour of covered bridges. That was really nice. We don't really have that up here.
Also, the place that we stopped at the end of Skyline Drive, the first day that we were out, that was just a really cute, classic native spot. I don't. Was that in Waynesboro? Yeah, I think it was.
I think so, and it was custard at one of those little drive-through, the typical American diner style spots. Yeah. So that was really nice.
I felt like the picture of the Harleys in front of that place. It's kind of good.
Yes, absolutely. Almost like a time capsule type of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mostly ride off-road. We've mentioned that a little bit here already, and you do a lot of off-road races and events and stuff. So as someone who lives on the West Coast, where there's so much BLM land and OHV areas and stuff, I think a lot of us, people who live here, don't really know that much about off-road riding on the East Coast. What kind of areas do you go to, and what kind of riding is it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I should say, like, I'm a relative newbie. I've only had a two-stroke dirt bike for like a year and a half. So I did a few races in 2024, and I'm hoping to do some more in 2025 with the East Coast Enduro Association. Um, and actually, that's kind of like one of the main ways people out here do riding because we don't have nearly as much public land as y'all do on the West Coast. A lot of the way that people ride their dirt bikes regularly is by doing races or dual sports or other events. So, I my calendar last summer, like there was something I could do with a dirt bike, either a dual sport event or an adventure ride or a dirt bike race almost every single weekend of the summer. Yes, you might have to drive a few hours to get to them, but there seems like there's just like a ton of options out here for all kinds of different types of riding in terms of like whether you want to be competing or doing something a little bit more chill. I live in Washington, D.C., which is a weird place to be a dirt biker. There's not that many of us who actually live in the city limits that ride dirt bikes. So I get asked all the time, like, where do you ride? And I'm a member of a club that has 15 miles of single track south of the city called the Washington Trail Riders. There's also public land not far from where we were riding Skyline Drive, that is state of Virginia land called, actually, sorry, it's federal land because it's in George Washington National Forest. And it's called Tasker's Gap, and it's like OHV trails, and there's a big Jeep trail, and then there's a bunch of like four-wheel trails. And some of them are so difficult that you don't ever really see four-wheelers on them. You only see dirt bikes on them. It's very, very, very rocky because we have the Appalachian Mountains out here. So I guess that's another thing to note that, I think you guys have probably plenty of rocks out west, but they're a little different here. A lot of what we end up riding, especially in Virginia and Pennsylvania, will be parts of the Appalachian Mountains. So a lot of up and down, a lot of hills that are kind of scary for a new person.
And then I've seen you ride your dual sport to your job at the White House also.
Yeah, I do. I commute on my 2021 DR 650, best motorcycle ever made, maybe. I commute on that bike to work through the city. And it's great because it takes me like maybe 25 minutes to ride my motorcycle to work, where it would take me like an hour to walk to the metro. And I get free parking because motorcycles park free there. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's definitely a perk. And you were just telling me that you're probably riding like year round pretty much, and even on the East Coast, because you guys, it doesn't get as cold as far south down as you are.
For better or for worse, like DC winters have not been very intense lately. So last year, yeah, I mean, I was only going into the office 2 days a week, which probably has something to do with how often I was able to ride. But I rode into the office all year round last year, and I probably will this year as well. This past weekend, it was like in the 30s in the morning, but I went and rode my dirt bike, and it was awesome. Even though it was a little bit cold to start, like once you get going, you warm up. And frankly, I would rather ride when it's 40 degrees than I would when it's 50.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that too, because we go ride dirt bikes in the desert, and most of the year it's way too hot to ride dirt there because it is a full body workout, riding off road. And now it's finally starting to cool down enough in the desert to where you can go ride dirt bikes, but it's still usually in the 70s during the day, and it's hot. The few days we have when it's maybe in the high 40s or low 50s, it's so nice to ride dirt bikes in that, because you get so sweaty when you ride that it's the perfect temperature. That's not true for street bikes.
Right. I was going to say, riding dirt bikes, this is a great time of year. For dual sport or adventure riding or street rides, definitely getting a little bit too cold. And I should mention that there are lots of places, especially west of DC, where there is a lot of like gravel. And especially if you go into like West Virginia, which is maybe 2 hours, there's lots of like dual sport and adventure ride to be had. And you could even ride the Mid-Atlantic PDR if you wanted to do an adventure with students.
That's great. And if someone wants to ride, just regular old Harleys or street bikes, and they don't necessarily want to hit up the national park or some of those big crowded roads, what are some other roads in the area that you would recommend?
I think, well, like I said, like Skyline Drive is like the pinnacle out near Shenandoah, but like any of the roads off of Shenandoah National Park are going to be beautiful. And so that area, like in the valleys off of the mountains, is really beautiful. West Virginia, there's lots of on-road and off-road riding, but like everything in West Virginia is beautiful. So you could just go into the state and get lost and probably find a beautiful road to ride on a street bike. And then Pennsylvania, like we went up to Gettysburg because I thought that would also be like a fun place for you to see with like slightly different scenery than what we were seeing in Virginia. But there's a lot of beautiful stuff out that way as well. And I think we went to the top 10 and I think like anything west of DC is going to be really beautiful. When we went east towards Delaware, like obviously the ocean is really cool, but I would say the riding in that direction it's a little bit tougher to find something very scenic because it's much more flat and much more just like me down.
Yeah, there were some cool bridges, and I do love a good bridge. But yeah, other than that, I agree going west was the way to go. I might have said this on this podcast before, but I feel like two of the most underrated states for riding that people like that don't come up in the conversations over like the most scenic rides are I would say Idaho and West Virginia. West Virginia is so incredibly beautiful. Like anywhere I've been in the state has just been green, lush, water features, twisty roads, just epically beautiful on a motorcycle.
West Virginia is awesome. And when we have time to like go out and do like an adventure dual sport ride, if we can take the 2 hours to go out there for the day, that's certainly what we'll go. It's always.
I think that is a great place to leave it. So thank you so much for joining me. If people want to follow you or see what you're up to, where can they find you?
They can't, because my Instagram profile is private. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. So everyone will just have to take my word for it. Katherine does a lot of cool stuff and is a really great person to follow, but you can't.
Sorry. And thank you, by the way. Thank you for coming out. I'm just going to say again, like how much I appreciate someone who like kind of puts their money where their mouth is in terms of being like, oh yeah, we should do this trip. If you say to Sana that you want to do a trip, she's going to get you up. She's going to like hit you back up on it, which is, to me, I think that's absolutely awesome. Like, I feel like I have so many conversations with people where we talk about like maybe doing something in a year or two. And anyway, I just really appreciate that you made it happen. And I don't get to ride those bikes very often. They obviously mean a lot to me. One of them is my dad's, one of them was my first bike. I wish I rode them more. And thank you for giving me like the perfect opportunity to take them on an epic.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That was so great. I honestly am gonna have to come back and do it again because that was wonderful. Let's do it again.
Your guest room is awaiting you anytime.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much to Katherine for joining me, and thank you for tuning in. Happy 2025, and until next time, enjoy the ride. The Scenic Ride is written and produced by me, Sana Bowman. Our theme music is by Ryan Sin. If you like the show, please rate and review it and tell your friends to listen. For all the latest updates, follow @The Scenic Ride on Instagram and Facebook or visit thescenicride.com.